What up, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs Cast Show. Big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local chapter. And also, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. That helps us get more viewers like you. We are, of course, presented by Complete Weddings and Events, as always, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth lighting, and day of coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. And the big news for this week is we had a second preseason game. So what were your initial thoughts of the preseason game? Just overall, the collective, what are your thoughts on the game?
First and foremost, I felt that being that it was in Arizona, I had to channel my inner Pat Mahomes Sr., and I had to smoke on a Joe Burrow. I had to smoke on that Joe Burrow. No, we looked awesome.
My Pat the second with Coors Light.
With Coors Light, that's right. We're channeling our inner Mahomes while we're Mahomes. You know, Mahomes at Mahomes. Yeah. No, I really thought that we had a great showcase. I was extremely impressed with Shane Buechele, actually, and I was thinking, wow, why isn't this guy our QB2? But I fell in love with ISM. That's I can't. Is it Emu Smith Massett? I can't even pronounce the guy's first name, but I'm just gonna call him Ism because he has that ism about him.
Amir Smith Marset.
Amir Smith Marset is.
Yeah.
You know what? He's making a strong case for Andy Reid to go with 8 receivers. I mean, I know it's been spreaded that with 3 tight ends we're gonna have 7 receivers. I'm like, I don't know. It's gonna be kind of hard to put Massett on the practice squad. I mean, especially the guy actually played real time for us week 15 all the way up to the Super Bowl. So he was on the active roster. And I just see some big things with him. Oh, I also was very, very pleased with I jokingly called Justin Watson the affirmative action wide receiver, but guys, that's out there in the kingdom. I say that jokingly. I'm a huge fan of Justin Watson, and I only call him that because he reminds me of Adam Thielen, and I feel like he might be alongside MVS as a starter. I'm like, will he be in that starting lineup? And I'm looking at the way his contract is structured. I'm thinking, why not? Pat trusts him, and that play from Pat Mahomes to him was awesome. I mean, that was Disney magic waiting to happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing Justin Watson finally get the props and the opportunity that he just so deserves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely watched that first Mahomes series, and he looked locked in, with a minute left in the first quarter. He had that 21-yard, we'll probably call it an out to MVS, where he got blown up and the flag got pulled out. Now, the only real downside there was Clyde Edwards-Helaire on that screenplay, and he got blown up on that one. But then you see Mahomes roll out, and Watson was the guy that he found, just dragging across the entire end zone. He was open, and I'm with you. Watson's a guy that I keep seeing in the different social media spaces where he's the guy that keeps getting thrown up as the wide receiver to let walk, to get the cut. And I don't know. I feel like I think you and I are pretty aligned. We think MVS is going to have a big season.
Yes.
We think he's going to be the leader of the receiving corps. Other thing that I saw, Sky Moore is the guy they go to when they have to have a third down. So put those in there. Are we sure Watson's not the third wide receiver? Are we sure he's not the third option there? Is he really going to come in ahead of Richie James and rookie Rasheed Rice.
Yeah.
Injury concern Justin Ross. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say they don't have a wide receiver one, they don't have a Tyreek Hill, they don't have a DeAndre Hopkins, they don't have a blah 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 blah. But at the same time, it's just that it's hard to not find something to love with every single one of these guys. They all seem good at running routes. They Amir Smith Marset, as well. So I mean, we've got
That's right.
guys when you talk about Tony and Watson and MVS and Richie James, all these guys we're talking about. I mean, it's potential to have 8 receivers. I mean, that seems highly unlikely. It doesn't pass a logic / smell test, but let's play a
No.
math game here real quick.
Okay.
So quarterbacks plus so we got quarterbacks plus running backs plus fullbacks plus wide receivers plus tight ends. So what did the Chiefs come out of last season with? They had 3 wide receivers, correct?
They had 6 wide receivers. That's correct.
Well, no, sorry. Okay, so yeah, they had 6 wide receivers, they had 4 tight ends, they had 3 quarterbacks, they had a fullback, and then aside from the fullback, did they have 3 or 4 running backs?
Was it 3? Was it 3 running backs? I think they only had 3. I think it was McKinnon, Pacheco, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yep, I think that's correct as well. So quick math there, which I should be able to do this in my head for my schooling. Okay, so 17. So 17 players are going into, last season's starting, we'll call it the weapons and so forth.
Right.
So for this season, I think we're all pretty in the mode there's going to be 3 quarterbacks kept, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so the only way that I can see that changing is if they decide not to hold on to Chris Oladukin.
Right.
And he should be the practice squad guy. So let's just say Blaine Gabbert with his perfect passer rating 2 preseason games in a row gets traded. They could theoretically just keep Bichelle and Mahomes.
Right.
Let's just say for the sake of discussion, they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks.
Okay.
So they're going to keep Mahomes, they're going to keep Gabbert, they're going to keep Bichelle. Worry about what that order is later. We all know Mahomes is number 1. So from a running back standpoint, who do we see him keeping? This is going to be a 3: Pacheco, Clyde, and either Prince or LeParron, right?
Right. And I think yeah, because then you have Pacheco and you have McKinnon. Yeah. I don't see that's weird because I think that Andy is high on Prince. And Prince is actually a guy who, you could hide him under special teams and make him like your current Nile Davis or something. You could say, hey, okay,
Sure.
let him run it, let him run the returns, let's let him return some stuff that, keep him and he's dangerous in space.
Yeah.
If you did that, because I can't see them going with 4, like with your math skills, like you said, it's not math. And so if you're going to go with 4 wide receivers, I mean, if you're going to go with 4 running backs, then you can't really carry 8 wide receivers. So
But we're
I'm
not keeping a
thinking,
fullback, right? We're not
right,
keeping
we don't have a fullback.
Yeah.
And I think that the Belldozer can play fullback because he played a little bit of fullback, tight end when he was in college, and he was a former quarterback in high school, just like Kelsey was. So I think that his style of blocking, he would be perfect to move him in the fullback slot. Now I don't know if you list him as fullback or you keep him as tight end and you just, slide him in that slot,
Well, let's
But
talk about tight end.
Okay.
Do you see them keeping anybody besides Bell? Fortson's on the IR. So we got Bell, Kelsey and Gray, do you see him keeping anybody else? I can't even think
No.
of a name that's come up, right?
I can't think of a name either. I think those are our three. And I think this is a great opportunity for Noah Gray with Jody Forston actually being on IR, which is unfortunate because I think Jody Forston is a fan favorite, and we all like his freakish athletic ability, and we were hoping for, you know, big things out of him, but the guy just can't stay healthy, and we just might be without him, you know. And so we got him on IR, so he's there for the rest of the season. But I can't see us doing more than those three.
Okay, so we have three quarterbacks, three tight ends, so that's
Mm-hmm.
six.
Mm-hmm.
And then that means we have 11 spots. We agree that we're not keeping a fullback.
No.
So to me, I think that three running backs is a given.
Mm-hmm.
I think seven wide receivers is a given. So what do you use that 17th spot on? Do you pick an eighth wide receiver or a fourth running back? So
Now that
that's the question. Do you
that's the
keep
question.
the fourth one of Laperine or Prince, or do you take that eighth wide receiver? Or do
Mm.
you kind of fudge the entire situation and put Tony on an IR so that way you can keep the fourth running back and you can always make the decision later as to who you bring on? That might be the actual answer.
That's what I was thinking too, Josh. I was thinking that because we don't know how far along Tony is with his recovery. You know, he's been injured since New York when they drafted him in the first round, and I don't think he's had the proper chance to heal. That's why he keeps getting hurt. He got hurt. How many times did he get hurt last year? We got him in the middle of the season, and I,
Yeah,
if my memory serves me correct, I think he got hurt about three times.
he did. Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so to bring in a guy like Massett, I'm like you now, Josh. I'm thinking that okay, maybe he goes on IR, and that's not, so he can be activated when he's ready. If you keep him on IR, you don't know if Justin Ross is going to hold up the whole season. So this
Yeah.
is the way to keep your seven wide receivers. Justin Justin might be the guy that holds up to the middle of the season, and then a nagging injury. And then all of a sudden, oh, Tony's ready. So now let's bring Tony in. So those two guys could be swapping in the same area.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So basically I think that our line is three quarterbacks, three tight ends, and then zero fullbacks. So it's we're thinking four running backs and seven wide receivers to start the year. But we think that Smith Marset, as long as he doesn't completely fall off in the third preseason game, has a shot to make this roster,
That's right.
which
I
is
I, I
wild.
think I
Wild.
think so too. I
Yeah.
and what's his health like? Because I don't has he had a lot of injuries? When we got him off our practice squad last year in week 15, I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if he's had injuries.
I can't think of an injury history with that guy, you know. So
Just kind of like a one of those situations where he wasn't in a good situation, and Kansas City just might be a blessing in disguise for him, because the guy's a former fifth round pick, and he was taken in the same let's see what he was taken in the 2020 draft.
yes,
Yeah,
let's see
I think so.
here.
I
We're
think it was the 2020.
sitting in a computer. We can actually, look at this for
Check
sure.
that out.
Okay, yeah. So he was picked up by the Vikings. He played for the Vikings and the Bears, the
Mm-hmm.
past two seasons. Let's see here. Can pull up his actual, page here. Okay, so it looks like, based on his Wikipedia page, whatever you want to call that, that's worth the Vikings, yes, took him in the 5th round, pick 157. It looks like his, 40 was a 4.42. So he's got what we'll call pedestrian numbers. So in 2020, November 2020, he got a DUI.
Ah,
And so that was when he was in college, playing for Iowa. But in October of this last year, he was signed to the Chiefs practice squad. So yeah, that's really it. He was elevated to the active roster for the week 18 game against the Raiders. So we've basically validated everything that you just said.
yeah,
Really what it comes down to.
yeah.
but yeah, it's just it's going to be interesting, but I have a hard time believing after this week 2, even though I just want to throw this out here. I think the Cardinals suck. Um
Yes. Oh,
and so,
they're
so I
they're
definitely think
complete
that we should
garbage.
I definitely think that we should handicap some of these stats by, we'll say, 10 to 15%, but
Right.
that still makes it a good game. It still means that we have as of right now, I think the smart money is Gabbard on the QB2 with a perfect passer rating. You have 3 quarterbacks that are getting stuff done. We have great young wide receiver play, and things just look good from an offensive standpoint. They really do. We all know that the defense is the real question we need to look at. I don't really want to spend a whole lot more time on Chris Jones because we talk about that
Uh,
every week,
it,
and
it
the
it's
situation is just
starting
not
to.
getting any better. But
No, it's not. It's not. It's to the point now, Josh, where it's like, oh my God, come on, Veach, what are we gonna do here? I'm like, are we gonna keep Chris Jones or are we gonna trade him? I mean, it's kind of like, let's go ahead and let's take our whipping. Don't if we're gonna be tortured without having Chris Jones, then let's just go ahead and get it over with.
yeah, let me ask you this: when's the last
Uh-huh.
time you watched the movie Moneyball? Because this clicked with me earlier today.
No, it's been a while since I've watched Moneyball.
Okay, so I love that movie, first of all. The
Okay.
book is great. I love that writer. He's right from the nonfiction journalist writing like a novelist type of space that I really like. So Michael Lewis, Ben Mesrick is another writer that I like. I'll kind of leave it at that because I could go down this rabbit hole for a while.
Oh
But
yeah.
absolute favorite scenes of that movie, and you can pull up the YouTube link, and I might have Brian splice some of this in here and hope for the best. But at the very end, the movie ends where it has Brad Pitt as Billy Bean, and this is how this went, because obviously this is a biography to some degree. There's obviously questions about how accurate all this is, but so he goes to Boston and he gets the offer to be the GM for the Red Sox, and then he comes back and he's sitting in his conference room back in the Oakland office, and he's sitting there pining over the situation. Jonah Hill's character as Peter Brand walks in. Speaking of it not being a biography, that guy doesn't actually exist. He was,
Right.
a person who didn't want to be named. But so he comes in and can tell, what the situation is, and just goes, "What was his offer?" And Billy Bean just keeps trying to wave him off. He's like, "No, what was his offer?" And he hands him the piece of paper. And he looks at it, Peter Brand, Jonah Hill looks at it and just goes, "Well, that would make you the highest paid GM in all of sports." And so Billy Bean does this whole thing like, I made one move for money in my life and I swore I'd never do it again. And it was him reflecting, saying, I probably should have stayed in college. I probably should have worked on my craft instead of going to the pros as a high school player.
Right.
Uh, but he's like, that's the one time I did something about money. And then Jonah Hill, Peter Brand comes back and just goes, "No, here's the thing. You have to take this because this isn't about the money. It's about what the money means." And it's
Mhm.
like, it's the same reason that a player takes it. It's like, you're the top paid player because of what this means. This has nothing to do with the actual dollar amount. This has nothing to do with, I want to say it was 12.5 million that he was offered to be a GM.
Wow.
And it's like,
Hmm.
this has nothing to do with it being that exact number. It's the fact that it's the highest number. It's the highest paid GM, because that's saying the sports world's validating you're the best at this job. And so I remember seeing that, and seeing stuff that like Lance Tidwell posts. Lance has
Yes.
been pretty locked in. Pay Chris Jones.
Yes, he
You
has.
built the defense around him. I applaud the consistency that he's had. But one thing
Yes.
that he posted earlier today that I looked at and I took a little bit of exception with was, people saying that it's gotten to this point, so you need a walk. And then I thought about that scene. And
Mm,
I picture Chris Jones sitting here, going, it's not the actual money itself, which is why it broke out on Twitter or X or whatever the hell we're calling that these days. Chris Jones
right.
been answering fans, and here we are. We're talking about Chris Jones again, even though he tried not
Right.
to. But somebody asked him when he was going to come back, and he replied back week 8 and said that he could afford the fines, which would be something like $4.5 million.
Right.
And so that immediately pulls out a certain group of people that just can't wrap their mind around that amount of money and say that this guy's being anything other than greedy. Completely understand where you're coming from. But then I think about that Moneyball scene. It's not
Yeah.
the actual money. It's not the $30 million. It's the validating that he's so good at what he's doing that you're paying him closer to the first than you are the third.
Right.
And again, he's not wrong. Chris
No, he's
Jones,
not wrong at
Chris
all.
Jones, Chris Jones isn't wrong. And so Brett Veach letting this carry on is either the first sign that we're seeing of him not being good at his job, or he's hoping that this ends the same way that Moneyball ended with Billy Beane saying, well, my family's in Oakland. I don't want to, you know, live in Boston and have my daughter go to school on the other side of the country with, her mom and this D-bag that she married,
Right.
that Alan
Right.
guy that Spike Jones plays impeccably, by the way.
Yes,
Um,
he does.
and so it seems like the two sides are, playing chicken with each other. And
They are.
at some point, things need to be resolved. But the question that I ask is, if the Chiefs end up having him come on in the 8th week and they pay half his salary and he pays $4.5 million in fines, are we in a significantly different situation if he shows up tomorrow without having a single snap of, camp or anything like that? I don't know. I'm having a hard time coming up with what's the best case scenario, because the best case scenario is that we're not where we are. And
No.
this was resolved a long time ago. And I guess you can kind of pan Brett Veach for saying you should have been able to read this situation better. And that's really the most negative thing that I'm able to come up with on this entire, thing. I just
But
completely understand where everyone is. It's a hard cap, and Chris Jones is going for what the money means, right?
yes, yes, he is. But the crazy thing is, what if Veach is more genius than we, the fan base, realize? And what if he has some inside information? Because honestly, Chris Jones, he's been with us since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, last year in 2022 was his monster year. I mean,
Yeah.
it was he was on Aaron Donald's level last year. But before 2022, I mean, and I hate to say this as a fan, but I wouldn't even put him in the same sentence with Aaron Donald
Yeah.
until 2022, you know? And so now he's had 2 contracts. He's had 2 Super Bowl. Well, he's had 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl rings. Um, so with that being said, it seems like, I think this is what's frustrating us about Chris. It's like, okay, we're trying to read Veach, and we're like, Veach, why didn't you just trade this guy before the draft? Then we wouldn't even be here. But now, is it more genius to trade him because he's holding out and he knows that that the highest bidders? He's got some teams I mean, he's probably dodging phone calls right now, like, oh my God, they're calling about Chris. So I don't know, Um, it's a tricky situation, because last year we thought he was nuts when he got rid of Tyreek Hill. Everybody said, "Oh, he put us a step back, blah blah blah," and We ended up winning the Super Bowl. Now the same thing might happen in Buffalo with Josh Allen and this Stephon Diggs, because you have Stephen A saying that sources close to him says that he's not happy, he wants to go.
Yeah.
And then his publicist, because those guys, when they go on Twitter, a lot of times they're not tweeting it itself. So it could have been a publicist that say, hey, let me go in there and kind of knock all this down, so that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot. But I'm a firm believer of where there's smoke, there's fire. And
Well, that was going to be my question around that. Do you believe that there's some truth to this? Because I have a hard time believing there's not.
Me too. I have a very hard time believing, and I don't think that Stephen A. Would put his credibility on the line to just flat out lie about it. I mean, if it was Skip Bayless, I would be like, hey, that's Skip. Skip is he does things for the shock factor. So I'd be like, okay, that's Skip, But I don't think Stephen A. would actually do that on purpose. And then the way he said it, he stood on it, and I was like, yeah, I could definitely agree with that. But
I watched that clip. He repeated it 3 times.
He sure did.
Well, and then the whole dust up at practice. I mean, there's too much stuff that's just adding up. And I mean, the whole context was by elevating the Jets as contenders. His whole premise was we're giving the Bills a pass by not calling out their decline. But I don't know, this Diggs situation. They were going after Hopkins. I don't know that Diggs is one of those guys that you can figure out. I mean, he kind of seems to me like he thinks he's the best receiver and he should be winning the Super Bowl every year, which just isn't a rational,
he
comment.
Is a diva.
Oh yeah, exactly. God. Exactly. I mean, he's not getting himself traded to Kansas City. He's not getting himself traded to the Eagles. So
not the Bengals.
Well, exactly.
The Bengals don't have any room for him.
What's the plan beyond that? I mean, you're trying to get yourself traded to the Cowboys so you can
play with your brother
team, or I mean, it's like, what are we doing here?
Well, yeah, I mean, his brother plays for the Cowboys, and then his former offensive coordinator is the head coach, Brian Dable, over there in New York Giants. Sure. I could see him trying to make a play to go to the Giants, or I can see him trying to go to the Cowboys. Thinking that he can make Dak Prescott, our beloved Showtime, the Magic Man Mahomes, and it's just not. That's not him. That's not his game. I think that Dallas needs to stick with running the ball instead of trying to put that in his hands.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Put me on the spot.
I didn't put this in any of the prep notes. Okay. By the way, we do have prep notes, but this is still pretty unscripted, just to be clear about that. So I get the impression that you think the Giants are going to be a good team. And I think you're kind of on an island here. So what are your thoughts on the Giants?
I think that they are the biggest sleeper in the NFC. And if their biggest, the only team that they're going to have a hard time beating is Philadelphia. Philadelphia owns them. So I think that sometimes if they get a lucky break and somebody else beats Philadelphia, I think that they could possibly go to the Super Bowl, because I think that Brian Dable is that good of a coach. I mean, he's winning games with Danny Dimes. Let's let that soak in. Danny Dimes. I do not think that Danny Dimes is worth the contract that he got paid. I do not think that Danny Dimes is an elite quarterback at all. But he's winning with Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. So that's kind of, that says to me that, hey, he's a great coach. Just like I see the same surprise with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh will make that leap as well because of Mike Tomlin. I think he's a phenomenal coach who is gonna win games with Kenny Pickett. But I mean, he got George Pickens. I mean, the guy's a freak of an athlete, but he's, as long as Pickett can keep throwing that to them. But no, I think that the NFC is wide open. And I think that San Francisco takes a step back because we don't know their quarterback situation. I really think that by mid-season, going down the stretch, it's going to be Sam Darnold. I think that he's better than Purdy. I think that he's better than Lance. He has more experience, and I think that by the middle of the season, those fans are going to be chanting Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold is going to become their QB.
So based on what you just said, I think we do know the 49ers quarterback situation. And
Yeah.
it's just more people need to say some of this stuff out loud. But okay, so
Yes.
next week we're going to get into record projections, and we're going to talk about season projections and stuff like that. So that's a good preview for that
Yes,
right there. But you basically confirmed what I thought you've been putting out there, that you actually think the Giants are a good team. So there we go. Couple other interesting roster things after talking about Diggs. I don't see a world where he gets traded anywhere, by the way, but your Giants scenario does make a little bit of sense. The other guy whose name was popped up in the trade situation, Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not really sure what's going on with the Colts. I'm somewhat inclined to just believe that Jim Irsay is a drunk, going senile old guy, but I don't know. Maybe there's a little more thought process that goes to this. So to recap that situation, Taylor's unhappy with his contract, like many others, like pretty much every single running back. Josh Jacobs is the same thing with the Raiders. He appears to have blinked, and he's going to report to camp, play on the franchise tag. But so Taylor, in the middle of his contract, is going for a raise. Jim Irsay said, "We're never giving you a raise. We're never trading you." Here this week, it comes out that he's been given permission to seek a trade, which that is always the funniest thing that I hear, is when a player
that's
says,
hilarious.
you can seek a trade, because what that really means is that you can say out loud that your agent's been calling every single team, even though we all know that this has been happening anyway. So I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, or give percentages up to 100, what do you think the percentages are that Taylor gets a trade, and what would be your 3 teams in order that you think he goes to?
I think he's going to get the trade because of the numbers that he put up. I think the perfect spot for him is Dallas, because you need a run game, and Pollard is coming off of a torn ACL. Ronald Jones, I don't know what's going on with him. He's probably not going to make the roster. Right now, their guy is Deuce Vaughn. I call him Darian Sproles the second.
Yeah, K-State guy.
Yeah, K-State guy. I mean, and he's great. But being at his size, you need another running back to split carries with. And I think Jonathan Taylor and Deuce Vaughn would actually make Dallas a legit threat team, because now you're taking the game out of Dak's hands, and you're putting it in the hands of the running backs first, and then Dak can surprise you. All Dak would have to do is just play game manager. That would limit a lot of his interceptions. But yeah, Dallas is my first spot. My second,
to be clear, you would say Taylor and Pollard. So Taylor would take over the Ezekiel Elliott, not Deuce. Deuce Vaughn's not taking Tony Pollard's job.
No, because
okay,
Pollard. But see, because Pollard. Well, see, Pollard's not ready to play yet week 1. No.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, no. Deuce Vaughn, that's what I was saying. Yeah, Deuce Vaughn it would have to fill that Pollard role right now until Pollard's ready. But once Pollard is back, I mean, who are we kidding? Deuce Vaughn is going to be a special teams guy at best.
Got it.
And but yeah, after Dallas, I would say Tampa Bay, because you don't know if you're going with Trask, you're going to go with Mayfield. you don't know. You need a really good running back that kind of take the pressure off of both of those guys. So I'm thinking Tampa Bay, and my third team off the top of my head. Let me see. Third team. Wow. I would say the LA. No, the LA Rams. Rams haven't had that. Hasn't had that. They haven't had that dominant run presence since Todd Gurley. And a guy like Jonathan Taylor will take the top off of that offense, and you just don't know what they got with Matthew Stafford. I don't know what's going on. I hadn't heard much about it, but I'm like, is he contemplating retiring? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing that I think every single one of those teams that you mentioned have in common is a willingness to make a splash. The Rams clearly are. Colin Cowherd talks about these guys all the time about they're
Yeah.
the LA, you go for the win. Jerry Jones would write that check tomorrow if it came
Yes,
down to it. And
yes,
then Tampa, I think, is reeling to stay relevant. So I'm gonna give my three. So what did you say the percentage is? You think that it's 100% Taylor's gonna get a trade, right?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so.
So I put this at a 50-50 at best.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. Is that it's a 50-50 at best. But I think you're spot on with the first one that you mentioned being the Cowboys. And again, this just feels like a Jerry Jones, type of
Yes,
move. It really
yes, it
does.
does.
Replace Ezekiel Elliott, and then he gets to sit and tell everybody, this was my plan the entire time, and we all have to act like we believe him. So
Right.
I think that one makes sense. I've talked quite a bit here about the Bears having deep pockets, so I'm going to put them at number two. I think they're looking
Yes.
for an identity. And then I'll put the Vikings at number three because why wouldn't they try to replace Dalvin
Oh,
Cook?
yes.
I
Right.
think that would make a lot of sense. So, let's talk about just the fantasy football world. I know we all play. I know that this is fantasy by definition, but you're also kind of putting a real set of stats together. The two guys that every good team goes after for running back depth have been Tony Pollard and Alexander Madison for the past, I don't know, 5 years.
Right.
Those guys, it's probably not that long, but you get the point that I'm making. So those are the
Right.
guys that come in that produce. But as much as we can't picture Tony Pollard being a feature lead bell cow back for the Cowboys, can you really see Madison doing that anymore up in Minneapolis? Because I
No,
I can't. I can't.
I
So I can
can't.
see that
I can't.
happening. But I'm gonna throw in a fourth one that's a wild card. And it's
Okay.
gonna be in the NFC North, and it's the Packers. And the reason that I bring that up
Mm.
is Jonathan Taylor went to Wisconsin. He's
Oh,
a he's a
that's right. He
Badger.
is a
He's a
Badger.
Badger.
Yes.
So I mean, if you wanna if you wanna pull a move, the Packers are getting ready to roll out Jordan Love. I think he's gonna suck. I really do. I live around
Me
these
too.
people.
Me
I,
too. And I liked him when he played for Utah. I really did, but I don't. I think that he spent too much time as a QB2 that he's just not. It's past
yeah.
it.
Yeah, but so I just think about this. And by the way, a friend of mine, kids go to school with one of the guys who's going to be a producer for the games this coming year.
Wow.
So for the home games, and
Awesome.
so he talks to, and I have another friend who was the post game analyst. So I know some people that watch the Packers way more than most people watch anything,
Hmm.
and there's a level of optimism around the people close to the team. And a specific thing that I heard is that John Kuhn, the guy who was the touchdown vulture for the Packers, fullback forever, he's very tied to the team. And what he says is that the team is very young, they're very hungry, they're fast, they're all these things. I can
Wow.
see that all being true. The Packers tried to build a defense the entire time Rodgers was there. Defense and an offensive line never gave him any weapons. That's all well documented. So
Hmm.
the vibe is that the Packers are going to be fine as long as Love doesn't come out and be just a supreme liability. I don't see a world where he's not a supreme liability. The
I
Packers
agree.
the Packers don't bring in free agents,
No.
but I think about this. If the management structure understands they're getting ready to put out a bad quarterback product with a decent defense and there's a level of kind of hoping for the best, is there really anything that you could do to pacify Wisconsin fans more than bringing in Jonathan Taylor to have this three-headed monster of that running back room with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones? So I mean,
I
you would look at this as a reason there's not enough carries to go around there, but
no.
that's not happening. It's not, but it's a wild kind of what if scenario. But I definitely think that he's gonna look for an AFC spot if he ends up going somewhere. Cowboys and Bears are my like real answers. The Vikings getting creative or the Packers trying to pull some magic out of the hat would be kind of wild. Or, let's just say they trade one of those two other guys that I mentioned to the Colts.
That's right.
That happens. So there you go. That's my backhanded
Yeah,
olive branch
because
to my
that's
local
the
fans around here that I live with.
yeah. Yeah, see, because you're right, and Ursay, I think he's off his rocker because I'm like, you want to put all this pressure on your rookie quarterback. I know that he has high hopes for Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson is a freak of an athlete, but I don't know if he's going to be long term. I think he's the new Cam Newton. I think he's going to come out hitting hard, but you're going to have to put something with you.
Yeah, I don't know about the Colts. The Colts are either going to win one game or they're going to be way better than we think. Yeah, not a lot of middle ground there. So
Not a lot.
let's go back to our roster, but stay with the running back position.
Okay.
So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is another name that I call us, we're fanalists, we're fans,
Yes, fanalist. I love it.
we're fanalists, yeah. So the name that keeps being thrown around is there really a chance that he makes the roster? This is a guy that could get cut. They didn't pick up his option. Is he being showcased for a trade? We've talked about this. Is he actually going to be part of the offensive plan? What do you think the likelihood, percentage wise, of Clyde Edwards-Helaire just getting cut at the end of the preseason?
See, I I I I see that at about a 30%. I think that Andy Reid keeps him this last year, and they just showcase him uh, this year. And I know that Clyde Edwards, I feel like he will play his best football this year and rival Isaiah Pacheco to the point to where they're going to be a good 1-2 punch. And I think that he's going to go for the gusto. I think he's going to stay on the roster, and he's going to get paid elsewhere in the free agency. Him and L'Jarius Sneed. But I think that Helaire has no real trade value right now, and so I think that we're kind of stuck with him. So I look for him 70%, 70 to 75% chance him making the 53-man roster and not getting cut.
Okay, so you mentioned Reid showcasing him. Do you really think that Reid's going to kind of showcase him to help him get that next contract not here, or is this just going to be a situation where the contract year is undefeated?
Contract year is undefeated.
Yeah,
I think that he's just gonna come out, and whenever he gets the ball, he's just gonna do some amazing things that we hadn't seen in him yet, and we're gonna be like, oh my God, why you couldn't do this a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely seems like a problem that would be worth dealing with, and a
Yes, it is.
bridge is worth crossing. Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, I can't really argue with any of the points that you made. I I would only say that a 30% chance of getting cut is probably a little high because, like you said, he has no trade value, and we're basically banking the entire investment on him as a player on the contract year being undefeated. So Last point, and this is something that I saw Farzine Vesuvian put up today, and it was a comment that Jeff Chiata or Chidia,
Mhm.
it's horrible. I can't pronounce his name. Got on
Me neither.
810, and he was talking about Tony Gonzalez versus Travis Kelsey as the best tight end that we've ever
Mm,
had,
mm.
and he was siding with Gonzalez, and he made a comment that the majority of Chiefs fans would agree with that. So Farzine put up a poll, and I think most everybody voted for Kelsey, and it was kind of a landslide. So my question to you: who do you think is the best Chiefs tight end of all time? Is it Tony Gonzalez? Is it Travis Kelsey? And most importantly, since this is such a subjective question, why?
Well, I I'm gonna go against the norm, and I'm gonna say Tony Gonzalez. And why? Because Tony Gonzalez did not have the caliber quarterback of Patrick Mahomes. Tony Gonzalez, his best quarterback, honestly, was Trent Green. Trent Green, I wouldn't even put him in the same sentence with Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, Tony Gonzalez was getting it done with Matt Castle. He was getting it done with Tyler Thickpen. He was getting it done some with Casey Printers. He was getting it done with Cal Orton. I mean, all of these guys right now that with the exception of Trent Green, Blaine Gabbert is miles ahead of those guys, and he's our QB2. Shane Buechele is ahead of those guys, and he's our QB3. So looking at the freak athleticism of Hall of Fame tight end Tony Gonzalez, and a lot of fans don't like Tony because when Tony went to Atlanta, he was kind of buy into the Atlanta Falcons theme, and I think he kind of burnt some bridges with some fans. But his numbers, man, I think Tony Gonzalez is. I think he's clearly like the best tight end that's ever played the game of football. Now, I think that Kelsey is right there on his heels, and Kelsey is every bit of second best, but no, not at all. Imagine Tony Gonzalez with Patrick Mahomes in his prime. It,
Under
hey,
the current rules. I mean, and
yeah,
that's the other thing. I mean, this is kind of Jordan versus LeBron, and
right.
you're picking certain things, and there's eras, but I tend to agree with you. I mean, Kelsey's incredible. You know,
He's
we're so
incredible.
fortunate to be
One of my
witnesses, and
favorite Chiefs of
yeah,
all time. I love Travis Kelsey, but
yeah.
I can't put him over Tony G. I can't.
Yeah, and I can't either. And I'd say that I agree that Tony G is the best to, lace him up at that position and at different time and place. I mean, if we're looking at top five Chiefs quarterbacks ever, I mean it's probably Mahomes, it's probably Lynn Dawson, it's probably Alex Smith, and I would put Joe Montana at fourth because he's Joe Montana, and then I would
Right.
put Trent Green as five.
Right.
But outside of that, I mean, is there even any point in coming up with a number six on the list? It's those five, and you can tell me that I'm wrong for that order that I did it in. But is there
No,
really a
you
number
can't
six?
put black and
Is
reds
there
in
is
there.
there a number six? Yeah, and we all know there's not. So yeah, I think we're 100% aligned there. That Gonzalez is the guy, and the whole thing about going to the Falcons, I genuinely believe that there was just more just kind of hurt within a fan base that we never won anything, and he was our best player, and he left because he just didn't believe he could win here, and ended up being proven 100% correct. I mean,
Yes.
he wouldn't have done anything here. But no, seeing him play with some of those other guys would have been cool, but that's not any more of rational what if as thinking about Jamal Charles with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, wouldn't that
Be
that
incredible.
would have been a match made in heaven.
But it would have been incredible. Would have been incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Because Charles, he was a better Shady McCoy. Like Charles was half wide receiver, half running back, and his catching ability out of the backfield was I mean, the only guy I can put with Charles in that regard is Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. They were the same kind of player,
What about
you
Marshall
know.
Faulk?
Yes,
I'll throw his name in there too. But yeah, LT,
Marshall Falk is very
LT,
underrated.
yeah, LT, Marshall Faulk, Shady McCoy, Jamal Charles. I mean, we've gotten to see some fun transitionary players when with the way offenses are put together. But no, I agree with you on Tony Gonzalez. So just real quick before we get into our final takes, what are you looking for in this last preseason game?
In this last preseason game, I am looking for chemistry on defense. I'm looking for our to see what the defensive line is going to do without Chris Jones, because now this is a real situation. So I want to see if Danny Shelton is who who people think Danny Shelton is. I don't think he's nowhere close to a Chris Jones, but he's playing that spot. So I need to see if he can hold his own, and then I need to see if our linebacker core will continue to step up. I'm pleased with Tranquil. Definitely a huge fan of Nick Bolton. I just freaking am over the moon for Nick Bolton. Willie Gay, I think, I don't know. He's had some injury issues, but I'm looking for Willie Gay to step up and use that quick cat-like speed that he has to get to the ball. And I'm watching our young corners again. I'm a fan of Josh Williams and what's the I can't even
Jalen
Watson,
Watson,
Jalen
McDuffie,
Watson.
all those
Yeah,
guys,
yeah,
yeah. And then Snead,
yeah.
elder statesman in his fourth season.
Hmm. That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for the same thing, but I kind of boil mine down to, for me, what I really, really, really want to see this weekend out of preseason game 3 is the Deshaun Watson unit doesn't score a point. That would
Right.
be that would be a success for me. Um,
Oh, you're right. We
after
are playing
that,
the Cleveland Browns.
After that, I don't care how many points the Browns put up because we're talking monopoly money version of points. But if they can stop that Deshaun Watson, first team, we're good. So,
I think
um,
so.
yeah, it's all right. Getting into final takes, I got a really short one here this week. We're looking at
Okay.
record heat index, and places up in Milwaukee are supposed to hit 100 degrees. So, take
Really?
care of yourselves. Yeah, take care of yourselves, guys. That's really all
Yeah,
I got.
it's 106 down here in Texas, and I'm in Houston, so it's
Yeah, I
it's
mean, you
crazy.
guys do that all the time. We don't really do 100 up here.
Oh man.
So yeah, what do you got for us?
Oh, nothing much, man. I'm just looking forward to staying cool, beating the heat. Looking forward to getting with different Chiefs groups, and let's try to get our guy in the Hall of Fame next year. Let's try to get Otis Taylor.
Yeah,
I think he's long overdue. I know a lot of us are going to vote Jamal Charles, and he's probably going to get in because I mean, why not?
good.
JC 25 you know, he's definitely that guy. What WWW? What would Jesus do? What would JC 25
Well,
do? And
Jamal
I
do, yeah, yeah,
right, but it would sure be nice to have him and Otis Taylor in the hall. It's long overdue with Otis Taylor. Met the guy years ago. Fell in love with his personality. Just a cool old guy, and it's a tragic that his eyes never seen him, you know, get his just due. So, rest in peace to the great Otis Taylor, and so I'll be looking to get with a lot of different people, you as well, Josh, and let's try to get our guy in there.
yep. That's it. All right. Well, until next week when we recap the third preseason game and talk about the final roster and what we're projecting for the season, go Chiefs.
Chiefs.